Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Why, hello there, and welcome back.
Welcome back, and welcome our newest patron.
Yes, we want to say a huge thank you to Andre. We appreciate your support. You help keep us going.
Absolutely, and again, all the videos go up over on Patreon, Evolutionary and EEARTS on YouTube. Right now, we're kind of going back and forth, alternating between the two, as EEARTS was the backup channel created kind of when I felt like we should, and then Evolutionary got attacked and was basically sidelined so much that EEARTS became the main channel, and now they've removed all the restrictions on Evolutionary, which is interesting in and of itself, and so we're posting back and forth as far as YouTube goes. And of course, we are also on Rumble, Brighteon, and Bitchute as well. And everything also goes up on Ko-Fi besides the exclusive Patreon ones for Patreon supporters. And again, we couldn't do it without you guys.
No, we could not. And it really, really helps. And plus, it's nice to go over on Patreon because we get to be a little more... we can speak a little clearer, a lot clearer, actually, from our experience. We're allowed to say things otherwise we can't say on the YT. So that makes it almost therapeutic for us, too.
You just never know what YT is going to do, basically. And so if you listened to the Biden speech, the State of the Union, it was, again, what hits me when they're introducing all these people, it's just nothing but ego, and it's so pompous, and it's so arrogant, and it is so elitist. And at this point in time, to me, I'm kind of saying, who could think anything good about anything of this system? But he started his speech by referencing 1941 and the famous speech that ended up being a wartime era speech by Franklin Roosevelt, talking about the great darkness that is Hitler and how this is going to envelop the world, and et cetera, et cetera. Then he went on to talk about and reference the Civil War, and basically saying that we're in similar circumstances with both. And if you could go all the way back to January 2018, when I first did a video sharing with you what I had seen way back in the 80s, and that was that they're going to create the conditions for what's going to be a civil type of conflict, but it's all about just simply, again, weakening the U.S. for a Red Dawn scenario invasion. And many people, us included, have really focused on this, and this is, again, the third. There's actually three. There was the very first one, which again happened right before a lot of substantial events in August of 2017. We're talking about the eclipses. The X marks the spot with the beginning eclipse, and then this one, and then we had another one that ran a little bit more along the southern border, kind of, actually originating again out of Oregon, like the one in 2017. And, what can you say? These are momentous times, and we are now so close. It's March 8th and April 8th, 1 month away. 1 month feels right. It really does feel like we only got about a month for final preps to get ready. While Biden was speaking, U.S. government websites, including DHS, ICE, Secret Service, and others, have gone down. There's some sort of cyber attack. As you see, we were looking at this at 2 a.m. This morning. Customs and Border Protection went down. Immigration, Customs Enforcement, Citizenship, Immigration Services, U.S. Secret Service, again, FEMA, they all went down. The Coast Guard was up. It's still in military. It's because it's a military address on a separate system. Interesting. Absolutely. I think that's another sign, because they're going down. The government's going down. The United States, as we know, it's going down. And we also have that whole Pluto return, which again, thank you, Emma and others out there that confirmed for me, it seemed like Putin moved as soon as we were done with the Pluto return date of 2/22/2022, but it's like the history books write it down as happening 2 days later. Yeah, there's time zones involved, but still, again, revisionist history is just part of what the system does.
Well, I think that return was significant for us. So whatever that date and time was for us is probably when the energies are moving anyhow. But yeah, I mean, planetary movement, the zodiac, our sky, our stars, everything is written in the stars. And it is so curious when we're looking at these eclipses, because I know there was symbology in the others, and this upcoming one, oh my gosh, the symbology is just oozing out of it. It's not something we can get done in just one day. And last night when we were doing our video, we were just talking about the upgrades, downloads that people are getting, and having that understanding that everything that has been going on in the last couple of months is going to come to a head during this eclipse. So it's not just the symbology externally, it's symbology internally. So this eclipse is something that we really need to take a look at, because I think it's going to bump a lot of people up and over that place in life and get us on track where we need to be.
Absolutely. This is a map which says this is what Russia's proposing as a settlement. So you can see probably 2/3 of Ukraine would be under Russian control. It's interesting to see how everything has shifted and changed so much in just these last 7 years. Now, NATO bringing missiles closer to Russia, putting them in Lithuania. Well, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia will be just a blink of an eye before they are under Russian control. Kaliningrad, again, a Russian enclave, is right there, right by that border area. Also, Poland is right over there as well. So, we could see the tension. Of course, you have the whole Israel situation going on. And we have, this is the two eclipses, the last two, really. The last one right here, October 14th, 2023. And then April 8th gives you an X over here, which is, right over. It's very, very close to the Eagle Pass area, in case we haven't noticed. It does go through, the major portions of a lot of Texas's population in San Antonio, Austin, and then up through Dallas going this way. And then onward. And, is the country going to be split and divided? Oh, I think so. Last night I was seeing a lot of flooding in what seemed to be more urban settings, factories and buildings, and people. It seemed kind of dark and seemed like people were congregating, taking cover almost. Interesting for sure, everything that's coming. And this is the path and the percentage. So, this is the totality path right here, which again goes up through Arkansas, going through both Wichita area and also Ozarks area, and then moving your way up through the New Madrid, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, etc., New York State, and on up through Maine. Of course, a lot of the country will see decent portions of this. The energy is going to definitely penetrate us all in one way, shape, or form. Don't forget about the Draconian comet or ship that's coming as well. Fascinating. It comes from where? The Draco constellation. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. Again, somebody said, well, I have a hard time thinking that a delegation would move so slow in a ship like this when the technology is, there to have them just be here right away. Well, I certainly look back to the pomp and circumstance of the State of the Union speech, and the way these politicians who model themselves on their Anunnaki, Gigi, Draconian hierarchy, they like to take these grand walks nice and slow and make a big dramatic entrance.
It's one of their favorite things to do. It's like, get the humans all stirred up, get them watching, get them planning, get them nervous, get them scared. It's fun. We'll have more loosh. We'll have more feed. It's something that when I do channel these entities, they are just not nice. But and like Mike was saying at the very beginning of the video, it's their ego is just incredible. And I'm not bashing ego. Ego has a place. It definitely has a place. We need ego. Ego can be our friend. But in this case, it's just something that all they do is like they have this huge feeding frenzy on one another's ego at the expense of others. So as they're doing this, it's like a huge parasitic entity when it comes to them working up each other's egos, because there has to be a food source. And guess who's the food source? It's us. We are their food source. And quite frankly, I'm getting tired of being their food source.
And it's in one way, more than one way as well. So then we have Ramadan. And you see, what's the sign of Ramadan right there? It's, crescent moon. Oh, yeah, the crescent moon. And Ramadan 2024, 3 days to go. Ramadan's expected to begin Monday, March 11th, 2024. Will end on Tuesday, April 9th. Okay, so the comet, and that will be visible, perhaps spectacularly, maybe not so spectacularly. Again, the eclipse April 8th, and then Ramadan ends April 9th. And so Ramadan takes place during the 9th month of the year in the calendar of the Islamic calendar, which is lunar based, lunar, moon. Everything about Islam is moon. It really is. And it's fascinating to see all the correlations. So, it begins the evening of Sunday, March 10th, and ends on Tuesday, April 9th. Again, it's in verse when we talk about Hebrew, and also here as far as the start of the day, we're kind of upside down reverse. In Hebrew, again, it reads in the opposite direction too. So, everything is kind of a distortion of maybe the natural order of things, but we've gotten to that before and talked about that. When you think about, Mecca and, the Kaaba, and how Muslims will go ahead and kneel and do their prayers. Again, Ramadan is a time of fasting. It's a time of getting control over yourself in some ways, and definitely added prayers. Typically what they will do is fast from sunrise to sunset, and then they'll have meals. That's about 12 hours. About 12 hours typically. So it's kind of almost an intermittent fast. I mean, I really consider it intermittent fasting, 16 hours. Incidentally, well, not really. Again, everything is kind of planned here in the stars. Well, we have Easter Sunday, which is March 31st. And Cindy was also picking up on Pentecost. And everything is coinciding in this time period. Passover begins before sundown, April 22nd, 2024, ends April 30th, 2024. There's so much going on right now. And then Pentecost is celebrated on the 7th Sunday, or 50 days after Easter Sunday. So that's May 19th in 2024, which is day number 140. There's all this going on. Now, Pentecost is when the Holy Spirit comes, right? And in reality, what are they showing? Little flames on the crown chakra. We've done videos about this multiple times over the years. This is showing a crown chakra activation. What happened to the people? Oh, they had, the gifts of spirit. They could talk in tongues. They could prophesize. Yes, everybody could. When your crown chakra is activated, when your pineal gland is functioning, this is not given to one dogmatic point of view. This is again the distortion that's given to us by the system. This is an activation. What are they looking towards? Light that comes from where? Ultimately the sun. The SON or the SUN. Yeah, well, in reality, we are all sons and daughters of Source and of the creator of this universe, and that sun, that being lies within us. The exterior sun is sending us DNA altering, consciousness enlightening information, and that's what light is.
Mm-hmm. So, I also thought that the days right after Pentecost is coming exactly 41 days. So 40 days would be the 18th, and then this is the 19th on Sunday. So I think the timing is very, very significant. When they're doing their holy time, and Ramadan is significant, and the eclipse is going to be here on the 8th. And then Ramadan is over on the 9th. What exactly is going on? If we look in times past, we can know that there's been eclipses for a very long time. There's been eclipses even before there is media. So like I was saying before, these entities really love to get humans oohing and awing over their magnificence and things that they do. And they like it when humans don't know something, but they do, like when it comes to technology. And I do believe there's technology that can make people speak in tongues and spirit. And I also believe that we can connect directly to Source. Source can give us all of the information that we could ever possibly need. So I just really have to wonder, how much of the technology are they mixing into this whole situation that we're going through? And it's so biblical. They need the Bible narrative. So they've been going along with this narrative for a very, very, very long time, even before media. So, what if there was somebody out preaching the Holy Bible that was written by the controllers, and then somebody says, either repent or die, and then the eclipse comes? Boy, that's going to make a believer, wouldn't it?
It could. And again, it's all based on basically the control through fear and the fear of eternal punishment, etc. Nostradamus' quatrain 9, century 9, number 83, the sun being in 20 degrees of Taurus, the earth shall so greatly shake that the great theater filled up will be ruined, the earth and the heavens and earth, the air, heavens and earth, dark and troubled, when the infidels will call upon God and the saints. So this is from godswatcher.com. And again, we're never going to completely agree with each other in many cases. Sometimes we might agree and see things slightly different, but that's okay because each one of us is a unique lens. Again, think in terms of fractals, think in terms of diamonds with different size facets, all reflecting the same light but in a different way. So when we look at this, it could be taken that Islam is calling on God and the saints at this point in time. So in some ways, you can look at this as, is it around Ramadan? 20 degrees into Taurus is, again, 20 degrees. Each there's 12 astrological signs. Each one of them has 30 degrees. That gives you 360 degrees. So 20 degrees into Taurus is about 2/3 into the sign of Taurus, which this person is equating to May 10th or May 11th. And the time frame, again, is one of, religious magnitude. And obviously, it could only be in this sort of conditions that we're seeing here. And this is a slightly revised one talking about the great theater restored will also be ruined. And many have equated the great theater. They're saying, well, is it Rome? Is it where? What are we talking about? There's been thoughts that it could be, anything really, any sort of big Colosseum. However, there's other things to take into consideration when we look to Nostradamus's quatrains. He was a Western astrologer. Western astrology has slightly different dates than Vedic astrology because the Western astrology doesn't take into account the tilt of the earth. And this does shift everything. Here you see Taurus beginning April 19th and then ending basically May 20th. Gemini begins there. But if we do look to the Vedic way of looking at things, the sun transits into Taurus 14th of May, and then it goes into Gemini 15th of June. Would he give us a quatrain using the corrected Vedic point of view? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's the same sort of time frame again that we're looking at. So I think what we're trying to get across is what the guides have said. There's challenges ahead. Absolutely. The time of hardships is ahead. And we'd love to say to you guys, hey, we're all going to be dipping our toes right into 5D immediately. But, that would be just catering to getting views and lifting up hopes that would be dashed, because the reality is we are heading into some of the most challenging times. But we should be firm and understand that, we came here for this in so many ways. So many of us knew, the higher self knew this was going to happen. And in many cases, especially if you're listening to this, you're here for this to serve a purpose and to help people through.
You're in the soul stream. You're in the soul stream, and the information that's coming to you is absolutely not by any accident at all. There's a reason why you're here, why you're listening, why this information is ringing a bell, why your spidey senses are picking up. There's definitely reason. And when it comes to Western and Vedic, what I have learned is that the energies do blend. So it's not as cut and dry, but I've just noticed there seems to be more accuracy when it comes to Vedic astrology. But in a way, they both still come from the same certain point, so they do blend to a pretty good degree. When we were looking at Nostradamus's quatrain, and it says amphitheater may crumble. What I was thinking of is where all the main acts play out, and to me, that's Capitol Hill, isn't it? Though, I mean, that's where all the acts start, and that's where, and I know for sure that this is very much an act. And
well, if you're going to bring that up,
yeah.
The great theater restored will be ruined. Well, if you go back to the War of 1812, and let me look it up actually, because it was restored, the original. So she didn't know that. She doesn't. This is where it's fun, because there's things that pop up that she doesn't know, and she would have no way of knowing. It could be absolutely. It could be that maybe this is talking about the Capitol building, the White House itself getting destroyed.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I saw in my head. It's like that building must crumble. So is the technology that they're going to tinker with, is that going to be directed right there? And then shortly after, are we going to run into a situation where it's a Pentecostal situation and everybody's hearing from the voice of God, not necessarily that voice of source. So I see everything really lining up here to be quite mechanical and quite written out to a good degree, so that those who are in control kind of have an idea of what they need to do. But at the same time, beyond that, I don't think anyone knows where all the strings go, because it's off planet.
So on August 24th, 1814, British forces marched into Washington, D.C., set fire to the White House, the Capitol, and other government buildings. After the British left the city, the government hired James Hoban, designer of the original president's house, to supervise the rebuilding of the mansion and executive office buildings. while Benjamin H. Latrobe returned as the architect of the Capitol. Hoban and his crew had taken nearly 10 years to build the first president's house. The post-fire restoration took about 3 years to make the mansion habitable again. They rebuilt the damaged walls and restored intricately carved stone ornaments. They also made a few changes. They used timber framing instead of brick to reconstruct the interior walls and substrate in order to finish the work quickly. So interesting. Interesting. The White House has been rebuilt. Is this in reference to the White House going down?
I don't know, but all arrows to me are pointing that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, what did we see last night at the, that was certainly a grand theater that was filled with people, and I kept getting the feeling of destruction there. So, yeah, thank you again. This could be something that we're discovering as we are putting it together. The great theater restored will be ruined. Air, sky, and land are dark and troubled. Then the infidel will pray to God and the saints. Again, the interpretations, sometimes you can only see them fully in hindsight and see how they do fit. We have a lot of that term that they don't want us talking about. The ones that came in that are not citizens, that are following Muhammad. And the question that I have is, is that what they're waiting for? Are they going to wait for the end of Ramadan to really go? There have been acts, that are obviously going on and have gone on since the beginning. Will they wait to the end of Ramadan? That would be right after the eclipse, and then all hell would break loose.
Yeah. And, it was curious last night. We were poking around on YT when they were doing the State of the Union. And it just so happened that one of the comments just happened to be, was it Arabic? I mean, like all of it, all the comments. There wasn't one normal. It was C-SPAN. We were watching C-SPAN. So I thought that was kind of weird. Yeah, the comments.
I had looked up info on Ramadan on YouTube. And then when I switched over to listen to the president's speech, it kept the comments from YouTube on the feed of the president's speech. And all the comments were about Ramadan. And so it was as if everybody that was replying about the president's speech was just referencing it to Ramadan. Now, I just X'd off of that. It's good that you mentioned it, because that could be something that the guides are doing to give us a bigger clue that it is that they're waiting on this. Mabus will soon die. This is a very famous one, Century 2, verse 62. Mabus will soon die. Then will come a terrible destruction of people and animals. Sudden vengeance will be seen. 100 hands. That hands word has been contentious. Not complete agreement on that. Thirst, famine, when the comet will pass. If this is that famous comet, then again, what does Mabus have? What is Mabus? Some take Ray Mabus, who was an ambassador and also a military official. Doesn't really feel right. That is his direct name. Some have said Ma Bush or Obama Bush. Different anagrams of that. We can certainly see USA is in there, and then you have an M and a B. Maybe maybe that M becomes a W and the B becomes a D, or maybe it becomes a P, and you have USA. Somebody out there might have some new ideas. It also does feel energetically like it could be Prince Solomon, the Saudi prince, as well. The vengeance is, I think the vengeance feels like, for what Israel has done with Gaza, you're going to see like we've never seen. And this is, again, that great unified Islamic invasion that had happened in the past. Islam had control of the Mediterranean for the most part, and it may soon again, and is absolutely a big part of the BRICS alliance. So there's many of them, many of these quatrains that are very, very interrelated, that show a sudden attack. And then we think about Washington's vision, the U.S., invaded again. Is that a real vision, or is it just them laying down the script? I think it's them laying down the script, honestly. But I still pay attention to it because they're saying it's important and it's part of the script. Nostradamus himself as well, working for the church and working for the monarchy, is obviously deep into the system. I think, again, this timeline all fits. So what would the takeaway be? The takeaway would be ready for anything after this eclipse, and especially heightened if we go ahead and look at the 20 degrees into Taurus, taking into account the Vedic astrology, that could push that major quake back to the first week of June. So sometime between April and the first week of June, I would certainly be ready for anything and everything. When we look at sin, what's sin? Well, it's typically taught in Bible studies as missing the mark. And I mean, I've spent hundreds and thousands of hours in Bible studies as a kid and even as a young adult. And I didn't have to. I wasn't forced to. I was just curious. And it's always been a curiosity of mine. But then when I got to the point when I was seeing, so many things, I never really believed it. I never believed it. I could always feel that there was major things that didn't make sense here, and it just doesn't make sense. Why does everybody seem to think it makes sense? Some would say, oh, you have to have the Holy Spirit. Well, maybe you just have to have a certain amount of AI nano in you to really get the signals from the voice from God technology. Yeah. Sin is the moon god, and Sinai is the area of the moon god. And again, when we look to Allah, is Allah really simply another translation or way of translating Elohim, or mighty ones, judges, the judges of humanity? Deuteronomy 32:8, and we can go over to Psalm 82. And we see they're talking about the congregation of the gods in the plural. And we can see the Greek mythology that gives you more clarification on that. We could see the many different mythologies from the Mesopotamian, but it doesn't even have to be the Mesopotamian world. It could expand outwards. This was all very, very well known. This was never, never, never about the creator of the universe. And this is part of the big reveal. So, the Sinai was off limits. That was Anunnaki territory only. Humans were not allowed to really go there without special permission. And when we look to, who was Sin, and these names get pushed together, smushed together, they are almost more like titles. As we talked about in the Vedic world, Indra is thought to be the king of the gods, but not really over, definitely not over beings like Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. King of the lower realm, so to speak. King of the lower realm. And yet that's a title, because there's a different Indra in different ages. What you have here, too, is when the Anunnaki came here, when these beings came here, they supplanted the natural system, and they took on the titles of these beings that were worshipped as part of nature and as part of the original creation. And this is what causes some of the confusion. So when we think about Nana, also known as Nanar Suen, Sin, Simbabar, Namrat, Sit, Inbu, a Mesopotamian god of moon and wisdom. And this is part of their bigger plan, is portraying again, when the Anunnaki are openly showed, they're going to portray them as one and the same as other traditions. But even though they might try to lead people to believe that beings like Aset Isis and Thoth Tehuti and Osir, Osiris, are actually Anunnaki, they're not. They're not. They are not Anunnaki. And this is where some of the people that have done some of the best work in some ways in this time are in some ways doing a disservice in confusing this, and that it's understandable, because if we don't have the talents of somebody like Cindy that can remote view, and there's many of you out there that can, we talk to many gifted people every single month as we go through our regular spiritual work with people that have amazing abilities and can read what's called the Akashic records, go in and see for themselves. And the fascinating part too is each individual is a unique lens, so you might see things that others might not. And this is always a wonderful thing that we should give thanks for, because we each have unique specialties and gifts and can see from slightly different perspectives. It's only when the ego steps in, when we start thinking ourselves as superior to others, that we get into trouble. But these beings took on names, titles of the ones that were here before them. So they stood in the place and were worshipped now as the supreme authority of this or of that. This is exactly what they did. And this is why you see like Amun and Ra becoming Amun-Ra. It's a distortion of the system, but everything is a distortion of the system. We've talked about this many times. This is Michael Tellinger's article, A Time Before the Moon Was in the Sky, and absolutely, there are so many that remember when they have traditions that talk about when the moon was put into place. And it's fascinating that you'll find more documentation about something like this than you will verification of some of the biblical scriptures that people take to be absolute literal truth. The reality is this is something that was put into place by the control system when it got here. When we live with the Elohim, this is Mauro Bellino, who is a Vatican scholar. He was a Vatican scholar. He worked for the Vatican. Now he's suffering from, I forget what they said. It wasn't Parkinson's, but it felt like Parkinson's. I think they were saying Tourette's, but it felt worse than Tourette's. And I do think they're having him have these problems because he's spilling too much of the beans, and they don't like it, so they're attacking him directly. That's my gut on this. When we live with the Elohim, and he's also done other books and articles, like just clearly explaining, this is Fifth Kind TV, which again, there's more good information in here than disinformation, but be aware that disinformation creeps in everywhere. The Bible doesn't talk about God. It doesn't talk about the creator of this universe. There's even the best that we get from that is really talking about the restoration of Earth from Tiamat, because the Earth was recreated after the system destroyed Tiamat from one of the bigger pieces that was usable to create a new planet. When you look to the giant trees and the giant bones and bodies that are all around the planet that are enormous, the size of mountains, it's because Tiamat was enormous, much bigger than Earth. Earth is just a small planet in relation to what was Tiamat. And you get the Sumerian stories talking about it, and they make Marduk out to be the hero, and Tiamat out to be a dark dragon, a dark mother of giants and evil things. Well, history is written by the victors. The victors were the evil ones, and so they have, unfortunately, the majority of the world giving praise and power to the dark side instead of the light.
Well, it's such a huge manipulation of energy, taking people's innocence, and the human's nature is to want to help. Whenever we work with someone, so many people, that's what they say. I just want to help. And they are following their sole purpose. We are here to help each other. We are here to guide each other in such a way where we can be more fulfilled. We can live to our fullest purpose. So they take these very, very good and evolved energies, and they misdirect them to a place where that they have control over. And I think that's where we need to keep that in mind whenever we are being educated, taking classes, reading books. It's all very good. We want to expand. We need to expand. But make sure that you're anchored inside so that when you read something and it's not true, well, it's not true. It's not just something, well, I don't know about that, but then you go ahead and go along with it because it's written in a book. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is why we have to get really good and centered, find our own truth so we can tell when there is a non-truth.
It's all about vibrations. So they get us putting out vibrations that they can use, and yet we have the power to change everything. If we could just awaken the world, we could just totally rise right above this system, leave them in the dust. But it takes a certain proportion of the population to snap out of it. Now, the individual could snap out of it and ignore everything else, and they may be able to ascend personally out of trouble, keep themselves in a safe spot, even if it is in the middle of like the Gaza Strip. There's going to always be these miracles where people survive, and there's no explanation for how do they logically survive all this chaos, death, and disaster. Well, it's the personal frequency, because you're enabling beings that are very benevolent to truly help you survive, and they will when you have to ask to receive. So that part is true. There is some truth in there, and when I say in there, I mean in the Bible, and I'm sure there is in the Quran as well, but it's the distortion. It's the making humans into slaves, because what does it say the purpose of humanity is in the Quran? It says humanity was created by Allah to serve Allah. In other words, humanity is nothing but a slave to Allah, and it literally means to submit. And what do they get you to do? Oh, I am nothing but a worthless sinner. They want you to think you're a worthless sinner. You belong to sin. The sin. You belong to the Draconian AI grid. This is the ultimate truth behind all that. When we look, and again, there's always good intentions out there. If we can understand that even insects that they want us to eat have the consciousness of source in them, we might look at them and think that they're inferior to us. We might look at the animals, think that they're inferior to us. And so we might stop eating animals, and we certainly, probably most of us, don't want to eat any insects. But the fact is, the plants have consciousness. It's the same consciousness. It's all the same consciousness. It's just the vehicles are different. So it is of the most importance that we ask for the well-being, the freedom, and prayers for the soul that inhabits the vehicle, whether that is lettuce or tomato, or if you're into chocolate-covered crickets, whatever. I wouldn't do it, but and especially if it is also of the animal realm, it's always giving thanks to the real creator and to the real source of all things, and praying for the consciousness, putting out that positive intention for the consciousness of that which is enabling our physical body to continue to have this existence in this world. And then also us living up to our highest potential in this body to help the most beings in the best way that we can. As you see, this baby elephant didn't want to be alone at night. No, because it has emotions. It feels fear. It feels love. It feels everything that we do because it's one consciousness.
I mean, this is just so sweet. They have feelings, they have emotions, they have all the things that we have, but their perception is different. Their reality is different from ours, but know that there is no difference in that consciousness. And it is so important to pray over your food, whatever kind of food it is, pray over it, because it's there for your journey. It's there for your sustenance. And it's so important also where it came from. The organic nature of food is so critical because we are all one. And when you start altering that, it starts to alter you. So going organic, so important. And people say, well, it's so hard, it's so difficult. I know it is hard, it is difficult. I can't take that away from you, but we have to prioritize. And I think now, while we're preparing for this eclipse and for the following weeks after, we definitely need to try to do better. We need to try to do better, and we can.
So I wanted to share that with you. Again, we've talked about the fact that the 3 most popular books, the most produced books of all time, the most published books of all time, number 1 is the Bible. Number 2 is actually the works of Mao. Number 3 is the Quran. Doesn't it make sense, again, if this is truly Satan's world, run by Satan, that Satan would want to get Satan's point of view out to as many people as possible? And thus, it's pretty obvious that those would be the most published books of all time. So Cindy's going to bless us with a little ding. It's something we haven't done in quite a while.
Yes, I want everybody to have their minds in a really good place, a happy place, have happy visuals. It doesn't matter so much right now, just be in a happy place, because that's what we're going to program ourselves to go forward with, is happiness. So find something happy in your mind's eye. Take a couple deep breaths, and we're going to do three tunes. And then some of you feel it, some of you don't. It's okay. You're still getting it.
And this is a tuning fork. She has hundreds of them, and this is part of the biofield tuning that she does.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.